Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the final Sunday show for Dynamic Character Productions All-Star Season, Rites of Passage. I'm your host, John Millsip, joined once again by Carrie Underwood. We just love having Carrie here all the time.
Dr.
And like
Carrie.
I said, Dr. Carrie Underwood. See, I don't say it once and she jumps on me for it.
Alex always says doctor, so I feel like you have to too.
Yes, of course. Dr. Carrie Underwood is joining me once again. How are you doing, Carrie?
I'm doing really well, thanks.
Excellent. And we can't talk about the conclusion of one of our seasons without our last winner, V, our winner from Trinity Falls. How are you today? We are so excited to have you.
I'm so excited to be here. Since I won the million, I've been really jet setting and traveling across Europe. And it's just nice to come back and be home with my DCP humble beginnings,
Excellent. We have a few, I wouldn't say they're jam-packed episodes to get into today, but we have some very interesting conversations to have here on these last couple of votes in this final tribal council. But before we get started, V, what are your thoughts on the season as a whole?
Well, so I'm a Trinity Falls, that's my season. So I came into the season being like, here's who I stand. I stand Lydia. I stand Lex. I stand Austin. Those are the people, and Sarah, of course. Sarah was my number two. Those are the people I stand, and all my people kind of diffed off pre-merge, except Austin, who's a real fighter. So I was pretty disappointed about that. And I spent the first half of the season being really angry because Lydia was my number one in Trinity Falls. So I felt like all the people who voted her off needed to be humbled. But then kind of all the people who voted her off are kind of no one else, there who's left. So I had to switch my standing to other people. Yeah, I was a massive fan of, and I guess we'll get into it, a massive fan of the sort of power trio alliance that we wind up seeing. I was a big fan of all three of them, and I was a big Andrew stan for a lot of them. Of course, he goes out in like that really tragic, serene way. But yeah, not to be like these are my favorites. I love the whole cast. But yeah, I think it's been really interesting and super exciting. It's cool to see how it's interesting to see a very like loyal cast, which I assume we'll get into. Mm-hmm. It's really interesting to see that. I feel like you don't see that always in orgs now. So I really enjoyed watching it. Yeah.
Excellent. And I mean, we're at the end. You played a mini. How did you think these people adjusted to like this hybrid game format of this long game versus into the mini at the tail end of it?
Yeah, I don't know. Like they've mentioned it throughout the season, but I wasn't keeping track of who's played a long game here, who's played a mini here. I know a lot of people who do the minis like only do minis and things like that. I know for me, this was my only mini I've ever done. Outside of this, I only do long games. So it was hard to know who had experience with what. I know it gets mentioned a lot. I think the most interesting thing about the format is it becomes a mini at the end, essentially. Mm-hmm. So I think that switch up seemed to really jar everybody. They mention it quite often in the later episodes about how now it's actually like grind time because now it's like an endurance piece. And you can really see that at the final hour when you can like feel the effects of all that time, the mini crunch time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. When you go from having 24 hours to discuss a vote to having 20 minutes to discuss a vote, it definitely changes the way you have to play the game.
Yeah.
Now, Carrie, there's only one way we can start talking about these two episodes, right? Because it's your big moment.
Me?
You bring in this first challenge in these trifecta of episodes we're talking about here. So give us a little breakdown of what went into thinking about this challenge, what we did with the hosts, and everything that happened in our murder mystery challenge.
Yeah, so we do love a good multi-room challenge. And we do love a good logic puzzle. And so this was kind of doing it this way was kind of the way that we could kind of figure out how to do like a multi-room challenge. We've done them in previous seasons. And this was kind of, but we also, for a lot of the challenges, we tried to bring in like the history of DCP. So we saw it with like the folklore story. And this was just another way to bring in like the history of DCP. And it was pretty fun. They chose me. I did not volunteer for this, but they chose me to run the challenge because I was like the only person who wasn't poisoned or dead or whatever it was. And I don't love being on camera. And as I was like reading the script for it, you know how you're always worried that your like intrusive thoughts will just like take over, like you'll just be talking, and all of a sudden you'll like blurt out something really terrible. So I was 100% certain that I was going to be reading the script and all of a sudden just like blurt out what the answer was. I was like, I have to keep my intrusive thoughts in check. It was a really fun challenge though, but I was a little bit stressed just reading.
It was fun, and we added that extra layer to it with our multi-room challenges because you've competed in one of our multi-room challenges. And how did it feel seeing another one of these play out towards the end of the game?
Hey, this one seemed more I don't want to say more fun. It seemed more I think mine, I don't remember exactly. I know I lost it. I think John won it actually on my season. I remember it being like a lot of math puzzles. Maybe it's just the ones I got to. I don't remember what I did though. I think there was one cup situation, but I liked the part where they have to spot the survivor video. That was so
my gosh, yes.
that was
That's
so
a good
cool to see. And just like, I mean, they're all cool. All DCP challenges are lovely.
Yeah, that one was fun. So we filmed that one. McKenna still has a lot of DVDs. And I always say to her, I'm always like, why? We don't even have a DVD player. Like, why do we have all these DVDs? And she's like, you're going to thank me when we lose the internet forever. And you're like, I really want to watch season 2 of Pretty Little Liars. And I have it. And so she set up like all of her Survivor DVDs and like all the other DVDs that she owns, and we just like took a quick film of it.
Well, I didn't realize it was a video. I thought somebody was actually resetting and like rescanning it, but I think it's a video actually.
It is. It's a looped video that I believe Greg was in that room. And essentially what would happen was we would loop the video and then it would loop back to the beginning over and over again. We do take we do little tricks when it comes to some of our things to make it a little easier on us once in a while.
Well, and I was thinking, when I thought it was live, I was like, that doesn't, because your human nature, you're going to probably hesitate a little more with one person versus another. So it's like, whoa, I wonder if somebody's going to get an advantage that way. So it being a video is more fair, probably.
Yeah.
It cool.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we really like these little ones because there are so many different aspects of challenges we can put into these games, and I mean, sometimes we just don't have enough challenges to do everything we want to do. We want to call back on some of our older challenges and things like that, and this is an opportunity for us to do that, especially with little portions of challenges, because a lot of the times in like true Survivor fashion, we have like segments of challenges that we kind of like put together and then they make a bigger challenge. And that's really what this challenge is. And we see as it's hard. Carrie, did you have people coming into the main room at all during the challenge, like between their rooms? Like what were people talking about as they were like trying to get into other rooms?
Yeah, so it's interesting because what we've seen in the past, okay, so in Monte Carlo, we allowed there to be, 2 people in the same room. And this time around, and then also in Trinity Falls, we didn't allow that. Also only one person. And I just remember in Trinity Falls, Sarah was just stuck. Like she had nowhere to go. And then V, didn't you? Anyways, I'll let you talk about your experience. But in the main room, like people would come in and be like, so-and-so is in the room that I want to be in. Like, I feel like it was Austin. Like, Austin was in his room forever. And I don't know if that was him, like blocking people or, just not getting whatever it was that he was trying to figure out. But there were several people who came into the main room and were like, I can't get into the room I want to get into.
One, I'm sorry, John. If you remember.
No, go ahead.
I apologize. Zucker at the end is like, he was like I'm not, y'all know he wins, but he says, he's like, part of my strategy was pacing myself in there. I thought it was interesting to hear, like, in my head, I'm like, I never think to have a strategy in a breakout room challenge, because I'm like, it's go, 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 scramble, 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 do your best, everyone. But it was interesting to hear that he was like, I wanted just to be really intentional in each room I was in. So, and I mean, he won, so.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because he came back to the main room to, figure out the logic puzzle of it, which I thought was interesting too, because he could have just stayed in a different room and just continued to block. But I think he wanted to be there to say the answer like as soon as he got it. I think is what his thought process was.
Yeah, it's those little tiny things that you don't initially think of in this type of challenge, because we at DCP learned from the previous iterations we've done of this challenge. And in Trinity Falls, we had the same number of contestants as breakout rooms at the time, right? So people were using that middle or that main room as a transition room. We had an extra room this time. So we had an extra challenge that everyone had to do so that there was always at least one free room. But we still see that where like people are taking longer at some of the challenges. People are intentionally staying in challenges. There were times, I don't know how many times I had to swear at my sister to get out of the room as other people were trying to complete things. It was just those moments where it's like everyone's like trying to get in as fast as possible, and they're just really hoping. I think it got to a point in the challenge where a lot of them were hoping they would happen to click into the breakout room they needed to get into right as the person in there was leaving, so that they could be the next person in there, because they knew other people were also trying to get into that one.
No, it's true, but it's also such a scramble. You don't want to be somebody who's like, it's too hard to keep track on who's been in what room.
I know that would be impossible to figure out.
That would be so, if you could visually, well, you can visually see it, but right on the Zoom, but it would be different if you could see it in different sections, like in a real life situation. It's super impressive and really fun and chaotic, which is
it's one of my favorite challenges. And I love like how much we were able to pull on like, our history in a lot of these challenges. Like it makes it just so cute. Like I just love it.
Well, as you already alluded to, Zucker ends up pulling out the win here. Big win. Wasn't necessarily needed. Only time would tell. It didn't seem like it based on the rumblings that were going on, based on, the Exile boys and Maddie all being a thing. But then we have Karen throwing up this last-ditch idol, saying, I have an idol still, guys. Like, don't even worry about it. I didn't say anything last time because I wanted to see if you would betray me or not. But I have an idol, I promise. Carrie, you know Karen very well. What do you make of this attempt?
Just last-ditch effort. Like, I'm actually impressed with her. Like, she started the game. I feel I've said this so many times before. She started the game at the absolute bottom, like she struggled in the beginning. Like it's just, she like had a lot of stuff going on, those first couple of days when the game started, and didn't really have time to like build those connections. And then no one was talking to her, or she didn't, whatever. She just wasn't building connections, early on in the game. And then, surely she, made it super far. I mean, this was definitely like a Hail Mary last ditch effort for her, but I don't think anyone was buying. I mean, Simmons was like kind of buying it.
Well, Simmons was the one who was going to be on the receiving end of it, so it makes sense that he'd be a little concerned about it. But V, what do you make of these? This isn't the only time this season we've seen this attempt. We saw Mike Reick did a similar thing in the pre-merge. What do you make when someone just says, I have an idol, going into a vote? Do you believe them? Like, is this actually, like, low-key the best possible thing to do if you actually have an idol at this point, because no one will believe you?
Well, first of all, Karen is a queen. She mentioned it herself. Like, she said it many times. She's like, I am the queen. It's so true. I didn't mention her in my players. I was obsessed with her watching it. She's so fun to watch. They were right to get her out because she was going to probably run away with it all. She's iconic. It's funny because I was somebody who faked an idol because I was threatened that I was going to play an idol, or once I got it at the tribal. So I was watching her like, oh my God, girl, I've been there. When you didn't actually have something. I think, yes, definitely she perceived her position as being dead in the water. So she was, like you said, Carrie, Hail Mary, like last attempt. She was like, screw it. Like, this is whatever. Maybe it'll work. Maybe it won't. I think the only thing I noticed was she was very flippant about it, which I thought, because she would go into the rooms, especially with people she knew was aligned with Simmons, so Austin and Maddie in particular, and she would be like, yeah, I have an idol, and so I'm voting Simmons, so either get on with it or get off with it. And I was kind of like, I wonder if I'd be curious if that played a role in there being like, girl, you don't have an idol, because I wonder if that tone she had around it was like playing a part, because I think if she had an idol, she probably would be like, I have an idol, y'all figure out who to vote, you know? I wonder if that, I don't know if it would really have helped, because they might have still put it on her, but I really wonder about if she hadn't just been like, it's going to be Simmons, I wonder if she had been more like, let's talk about it. I'm just curious if that would have all changed anything. Maybe not, but I think it's interesting, like hardcore, like, well, it's going to be Simmons, so y'all deal with it.
Yeah, I wonder about that too. Yeah, if she had more time to think about it, you know, if it had been like the final hour, if there was like 24 hours, she probably could have come up with something. But yeah, I don't know, you know, what the right way to do a fake idol is. Like, I don't know, especially in a mini when there's no time to plant seeds.
No idea.
The real interesting thing about going with this idol lie at Final Five, where there are only so few people you can vote for, is we have Simmons' confessional in this episode where he's talking about like throwing a vote on Maddie so that even if Karen does have an idol, he remains safe himself. Maddie's safe, and then Zucker's safe, Karen's safe, and Austin goes home here.
Yeah, that was interesting to watch him. Like, that took me by surprise when he said that.
Yeah, it's a risky move for sure, but I think that's the risky thing of saying you have an idol this late in the game or anytime, is you give the opposing side an opportunity to make alternate plans, right? And I think Simmons staying here, if he did end up doing that, would have been almost more detrimental to Karen than if she had just played an idol in that situation, which is why, like, I know I'm very skeptical whenever anyone who is clearly on the outs is like, I have an idol. It seems like they're trying to get the votes off of them, where it almost feels like they should get the votes on them, because then they control the vote.
Like if she had had an idol, her, I guess, best move in our hindsight, where we have all this time to think about it, is to just be quiet and let them vote you, you know, and then she can be like her or whatever, and humiliate them and all that stuff. But I think that probably is the real part that they were picking up on, is like if she had one. But I do get it, and I relate, because girl, I've been there and I've done the exact same thing. So
yeah,
it's really interesting that we have that bit of like, it's almost like that lizard brain takes over, and it's like the preservation is, hey, I'm safe, you can't vote for me, instead of like forcing the vote in a different direction.
Yeah, I was gonna say too, I know I'm talking a lot, but I was gonna say too, I wondered if there, and I don't know if it just was the edit too, or like, you know, there's so much we don't see, and I know there's like other things happening. I wonder too if she could have, because that trio is so solid, and I wonder too, I mean, the idol things aside, I wonder if there could have been an opportunity to be like, what are y'all doing? Y'all are just letting Simmons run away? You know, I wonder if there would have been an opportunity to be like, no, vote Simmons, not just because of my idol, but like, vote him. What are y'all doing? I don't know. And maybe for her it was like, because I know she was like working with Simmons. I mean, I know it was like more complicated than that, but at that point, and she probably did do some of that, but there was a lot of focus on the just vote him. But I wanted to hear her be like, no, here's why you guys need to vote him. Like, come on, you know?
Yeah, there was a little bit of that of her. I remember when I was looking at the footage of her explaining, you know, these are the reasons why Simmons needs to be out. But then she was kind of like, but I'm playing an idol anyways, and I'm voting for him, and he's going to go out anyways. And so it was like, just, you know, because there was like such a strong case for her to be like, well, I have an idol, so it doesn't matter what you guys do. That kind of like, she didn't really have that opportunity to be like, but you should really get on board and vote with me, because, and then it's like, well, why would you need to vote with me if, you know, I'm idling him out anyway? So
that's true. That's true. That's true. And even, probably for them anyway, if we were to follow that down, they'd probably would be like, okay, we hear you, but we'll just get Simmons next round anyway. You're still in third. I don't know. There might have been like, if they were convinced by any sort of like, come on, guys, wake up, she could do to them, they might still be like, okay, well, you're still gone, queen. We're gonna do it.
Yeah, they made the right move at that point. Like there was no Karen needed to be out of the game. Like there was no way.
So this just came to me. And I don't know, maybe I'm crazy thinking this way. Perhaps the way to phrase this in this instance, when you don't have the idol and you really need the votes to go with you, you phrase it in a way with, I have an idol. I'm safe. You guys can load all the votes on me, but then I control the vote when Simmons goes. That it's my move.
Yeah, right.
If you vote with me, I don't get to say this is my move when we get to final tribal council.
Yeah.
Right now it just looks like I wasted an idol instead. Maybe that's the way you phrase it. I don't know if people would believe that or not, but I mean, this is like my brain going off here. Maybe that's the way you phrase it, and it's the only way to really make this change where it's not just like, no, you know what, instead, we are just going to risk it. Because there's no real incentive for Maddie and Austin to flip there, because Karen's saying, I'm voting for the one that isn't you.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, make it about like, what are you going to say at the end?
Chills.
Yeah. But alas, we say goodbye to our only returning winner. Karen's gone, made it to the final five. Carrie, you mentioned that, a lot of life got in the way of Karen at the beginning of the game. I actually really think that almost benefited her because she had to play a lower key game. Yes, it kind of put her on the bottom, but it didn't put her in the line of fire either. Because she wasn't out there conversing with people as frequently as like Lydia was, as like Austin Garsow was at the beginning for those first couple of boats on the Dignus tribe. Sometimes life just finds a way. And Karen manages to get incredibly deep in this game as the only winner.
Yeah.
And
it was also that, she's pretty good at these challenges. Like for no reason, she's so good at Flip Cup. Like why? I don't know. And her team, her tribe really needed to win. And so I think that was part of it too, is that I think like if they were in a better place and felt better about their challenges, like they probably would have voted her off sooner. But seeing that she could, really perform in the challenges, I know Simmons like really wanted to win. So I know he wanted to keep her around so they could put some challenges.
Yeah. Well, that takes us into our penultimate episode. This was a short one. It was only about half an hour long. A lot of talking. The writing's kind of on the wall here. Zucker, you got to pull off this immunity challenge or else you're gone. And it's funny that we have like these three boys from exile in this challenge because we decided to make a little bit of a change to our final immunity challenge this time around. We've done our wall slits in the past. We've done, but we wanted to stick with an endurance challenge for this last one. It's the last immunity challenge. Let's go back on that old Survivor adage of if you want this, you have to fight for it as much as possible. And we broke out Creed, which we premiered in our in Exile Island. And as someone who has competed in this challenge, God, this challenge is terrible. This is not a fun challenge. Once you get your arms out, it's okay. Like, it hurts. The burn comes. But it's getting to the point where your balls are sitting like at a good angle on your cups as you're getting your T-pose going. It's a challenging one. V, how do you think you would do with this challenge?
I don't know, because I think I would I like planks and wall sits, so I feel confident about those. And but I don't know about the arm thing, because if that fatigue gets to you, you said it with it's the live transitions that happen.
It was not a live transition; it's a time transition. So they had that little bit of time.
That hurt two of them. Because there was a time limit, right? Yeah. That seemed like that was the rough part of it, was that transitional part. And I think we're being kind, because I think maybe it's too hard to get it fully straight with because I think all of them had I think it was just too hard to get like your arm fully straight. I haven't tried it.
The wonderful thing about this challenge is because you have the ping pong balls on it, your arms have to be like so close to straight for that ball not to fall off.
Okay,
It's
that's
one of
fair.
the easier challenges for us to police as production.
Okay, I wasn't trying to say these people were cheating or anything.
No,
like
of course not.
that. I would never. I just,
But
yeah, it looks really it looks very hard, for an endurance challenge. But I don't know.
I know.
would
I have a bad shoulder, so I don't think I would have done really well. Fee, didn't you win your final one?
But I didn't. Ours wasn't an endurance. It was
Oh, what was it?
It was a straw and then a card and then a die and then a card.
Oh, were you
and-
shaky? Were you nervous?
it was a year ago.
I know. Do you remember being nervous?
I think I was at that point I was so shocked I was there, which is so funny because I was not a threat. I was there because I wasn't a threat to win. But you know, when you're in the game, and I think this Maddie I think touches on this at Final Tribal, like when you're in the game, you have all this paranoia. You're not, it's like you can't see beyond the trees. And that was like my only my second org ever. So of course every round I was like, they want to get me out. It's like, girl, no one wants you. Not a threat. So I think I was just like surprised I was still there. And that was my first immunity challenge I'd won. So I was just surprised that it was going well when I was building my tower.
Yeah, absolutely. It's tough. And like, especially in these final moments when you get down to this few people, like pressure's on. You got to go for it. And of all the people to pull this off, Austin pulls out final immunity. The man who almost killed himself winning immunity the day prior is back, wins this final immunity, and finally secures himself a spot at Final Tribal in his third season.
Shocking. It's amazing.
Yeah. He's come such a long way. Like, I feel like he's like, I don't know, watching back, I guess his first season was Yasawa, and I feel like he didn't 100% know what he was. I mean, he's really come a long way. I feel like he was making moves and, you know, saying things, and I'm proud of him. He's just a fun one to watch.
I'm incredibly proud of it. As someone who was aligned with Austin, betrayed by Austin, then realigned with Austin. I love the guy. I was so happy to see him play so hard, especially after getting like so far on the back foot at the beginning of this game. He definitely took the lesson of, hey, you weren't talking enough to heart, and he let it dictate the rest of his game, and it took him to the end.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. I was proud of him for winning immunity because I don't think he ever thought he would. You know, like he was so proud, so surprised when he won his first immunity, and then it was pretty cool for him to win the last one too.
Yeah, he was so cute after. He was like, dang, I'm still sore. It's just funny. He was like, just so y'all know I won. Like,
yeah. Well, and then we get to the scramble, and like I said, it's pretty straightforward. Exile Boys is a thing that's been kind of like touted this entire time, but in the end, it's actually this like OG Ignis 3, this new Fumo 3. And V, you said you love this 3. Let's dive into that before we get into Final Tribal Council. Like, what were you feeling about this 3 as you watched along, as they, you know, took out the people you wanted to stay in the game, but they kind of won over your heart in the end?
Wow. Okay. I feel I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about all 3 of them. The way my perception of the trio, I'll be quick, I promise. My perception of the trio was, I did view Simmons as the head of the trio, the sort of blossom of the Powerpuff Girls. I know it's, sorry, 2 boys and a woman, but I viewed him as kind of the leader, and he even says it himself. He's the connector of the 2. He said it very early on in the game, and it felt like it sort of remained true. But I also, I like fell in love with Austin in the late merge, because he has this moment where he's like, he has all these metaphors, right? He uses, but he has this moment where he's like, you know, the game is like you spinning a spider web. And I loved this vision of him spinning his own web of being somebody who came from literally being voted out, but then going on to be part of the power trio. I mean, that's an incredible come up from behind story. I don't know. I just think that's an amazing narrative to have and just to be immensely proud of. So I was really rooting for him. And then Simmons I did view as sort of the leader of the trio in a lot of ways. And then for Maddie, she's like social queen to me. I love her. I felt I related to her, not really how I played in DCP, but in general how I play in orgs. I really connected with her gameplay, and I'm sure we'll talk about it in the final episode. But she identifies that her thing is like, I played a loyal game. And I found it very interesting to watch that because in my head, I'm thinking like, I got to get rid of the Simmons guy because,
Yeah.
a lot of the times when you play as a woman and your main, and I don't know if it's okay to talk about this briefly. I know Karen touched it,
of course.
but when you're playing as a woman and your main ally is a man, it can be challenging to, especially when you are an under the radar player like Maddie was in this game. And I really relate to that. If you have a main ally who's a man and he's a little bit on the more public, more front facing side, Final Tribal is often like a little bit stacked against you in a lot of ways. And I think it is because Survivor is such a microcosm of our real world dynamics and all that stuff, that messy stuff. So hearing her say like, I know I can differentiate for myself from these boys. And then she corrected men, which was funny to me. It just was really cool to hear her talk about, she has so much self-awareness about her game. And it's really cool that, I don't know, that she was like, I'm going to choose loyalty. That is the name of my game. And that's what's up. I really admire that because I don't do that.
Yeah.
So I really admire that.
It's interesting because, or like an episode or two earlier, I know she was like, I should get Simmons out. And that would be like, I think the smart thing for me to do, but then what would my story be at the end? Like she was very conscious of like what her story was at the end. And, how could she at the end, like talk about like loyalty and then, after voting out her closest ally. So that was interesting, to see too. And she's very aware. I forget her age all the time because I feel like she like has to be years older than she is. John, is this weird for to hear us talk about your sister like this?
No.
And she's just like incredibly so well spoken too. Like it's amazing. Like
Yeah.
I was just watching her her exit interview, and it's like it went on for quite a while because it's like she was so well spoken and everything she said was so interesting, and we just kept wanting to hear more and more about what she was saying.
Yeah, it's interesting. Her and Simmons. Oh, I'm sorry, John. Go ahead.
No. Please continue your thoughts there, V.
It's interesting to hear her talk about Simmons specifically because I think at one point it might actually be the next episode, but she mentions like, I know that what the people want from me is to get him out and claim this as my big move. But guess what? My big move, I forgot how she phrases it, but she says something like, I don't want to follow that pressure. And it's interesting to hear her perceive it as pressure and how she wants to like go her own way. I just think it's cool to see how she perceives the game. And I know that's talked about a lot in these episodes about their relationship to Survivor as a whole, like how much or how little they've seen Survivor. I like seeing people navigate the game in such an authentic way that isn't like, not to be rude to Survivor fans like me, but it's like, I just like that. It doesn't feel so gamey. And I mean that as a genuine compliment to her,
Yeah. And she had said, that when she was preparing for day 2 of the mini, that she wrote her pitch for Final Tribal, like with the only one that she even focused on, the only option was Simmons and Austin both being there. Like she couldn't even imagine being there at the end with anybody else.
Oh,
Yeah. I mean, okay. Let's get to it. Right, we're at we lose Zucker, which is a shame. I obviously, as someone who is closely aligned with Zucker, he was my number 1 in Exile Island. Love the guy. Absolutely love seeing him play this incredibly well-positioned game. He was able to take what could have been a terrible situation at the merge when the numbers kind of turned against his alliance and maneuvered it into the Rob Goddess position, right? Like he is sitting here just shy of Final Tribal Council, kind of in a no-win situation where he wasn't the likelihood of him getting there really revolved on him winning that final immunity challenge. But alas, like Zucker did a fantastic job. Sad to see him go, but my sister's also in the final 3, so I guess I can be a little biased too. And also, two other people from Exile Island also there. So, you know, I'm just saying, like, it's a good season. Maybe you should watch it. But here we are, final tribal council, and like, let's just keep talking about Maddie and this experience. My experience with Maddie in this game, because as a production member, I can't really talk to her. And this is my sister. I talk to her literally every day. And so my conversations with Maddie during the game were just her telling me everything that was going on, me being like, okay, cool. Could you just elaborate a little bit more on that? That was about it. And just seeing her forge this authentic relationship with Simmons, because the two of them became such good friends immediately at the very onset of this game. And it's incredible watching that blossom, and the power that a game like this can have on real relationships. And Maddie, like you mentioned earlier, Maddie said her big move was sitting there with these two guys who had great stories, right? Austin voted out first, still makes it to the end of the game. Simmons comes in as a big threat, makes it to the end of the game, even though he continuously is saying, they should have voted me out, but they didn't. I'm still here. And I'm going to commend Maddie here. It might sound like nepotism, but I promise it isn't. It takes a lot to sit down beside two people with this good of a story and be like, no, this is my best chance of winning. And there's so much analysis that went into her thought process there. She wanted to be loyal. She didn't want to be like, yeah, okay, I make this big splashy move for the sake of being a big splashy move in voting Simmons out. Also knowing that Simmons got cut right before final tribal council in his last season, and he was super bitter about it, and he ended up essentially determining who won that season because of that move. Like, Maddie was cognizant of that. She's thinking about that, and she honestly felt and still feels her best chance at winning this game was sticking true to these three. It's tough. And like you said, V, an under the radar female game it's a tough one. Even like CBS Survivor has a hard time acknowledging that game.
True. Yeah.
It's a tough one. It's a tough one for us to edit, because especially when, like, you know, yes, we have Zoom calls and we have all these conversations that people are having. There's a lot of conversations that happen over text. We can't just show you like strings of text messages between Maddie and Simmons as they're like talking about their alliance stickers and things like that. It's just not entertaining TV, unfortunately. But the way Maddie played this game to get to that point, it's impressive. And then you look at Austin. I guess we're just going to move through the three of them now. We'll look at Austin for a little bit here. And Austin, in his previous two games, played a little bit further back. He never took charge. He really kind of let people lead him along a little bit, pushed a little bit, but like wanted to remain that backseat. And like, because of that, he gets cut late in the game because, you know, he has too many friends, too many people like Austin. He's too dangerous to have. And we see him here, and he pushes. He made so many great pushes this game. He threw out names over and over again. He wasn't afraid to have his voice be heard in these minis. He demonstrated his experience in these games, the experience he had from playing with other people, what he's learned from other people, and applying it to his own game. It's just really impressive. Carrie, I mean, you have also seen this evolution of Austin. What do you make of it?
Yeah, no, it's super interesting because, like, I think, you know, throughout like the 3 seasons he's played, like, he never once has been like, maybe I should watch a little bit more Survivor, you know, like, but he did start out in Yasawa, you know, just kind of like focusing. And it wasn't even like, I mean, yes, it's the social game, but it's not like the deep, authentic relationships. It's like, oh, let's talk about sports. And, you know, like he connects with like the bros really well, I guess. And I think something similar happened in Exile too. And then for this game, it's like he came in with a different strategy. And I don't know if it was a conscious strategy, but he definitely, I think he says it was that he wasn't afraid to come out and, you know, say, you know, let's vote out this person. And, you know, he was the only person, like if Simmons had done that, like I think that people just view Austin as like, I don't even know what it is. Like they don't expect him to know what he's doing or something. And so he's able to say like, let's do this and let's do this. And people are like, okay. And it doesn't come off as threatening as say, like if Simmons did it. If Simmons came out and was like, so-and-so needs to go, people would be like, oh, hold on, Simmons, like you have like way too much power.
Yeah, that's a great analysis there, Carrie, because Austin kind of has it's funny because I think of all three of these final three contestants here are fantastic leaders in their own rights. And they all present themselves in very different ways as leaders. And Austin has the luxury of just being that guy that everyone is like okay with listening
like
to,
the big goofball. Like he's
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then what do you make of Austin's game here? Just, Carrie and I have gone on about it. Now it's your turn.
I mean, I can talk Austin all day. I think I mentioned this. I like absolutely fell in love towards the late merge. I really was like, oh, hold on, he's about to like go to the end after being like literally the first one they tried to all vote out. That story is going to be, he's going to win. Like as somebody who won a game basically because of final tribal council performance, I was like, if he just spins that like outlast vibe a certain way. I think somebody says it to him at tribal. Somebody says like, there was a world where you like very much could like probably could have won here. I forget who says it. And I think I think he really had a shot there. I know it seems like a lot of the jurors felt kind of complicated feelings towards him, but it does seem like I think if he had this great outlast game and this incredible, like, I mean, he said it so well. He was the one pushing. Like if that trio was everyone had their role, then he was like the bulldog pushing. And bulldogs are adorable, so it's not an insult. But just to say, like, if they each fulfill their role in that triad, he was the one being, more like throwing names out and things like that. And y'all are so right. Like if Simmons had been doing that, everyone would have been like, whoa, okay, chill out, power person. And so I think he put in an incredible game. So I think final tribal council just can be challenging when you're there, right? So
oh, absolutely. And especially before we talk about Simmons, let's talk about the jurors and the way like they approach this, because sorry,
the pillars, they all had different pillars.
Yeah, they all had their different pillars and their different angles of the game. They kind of took the whole outwit, outlast, outplay of it all and like expanded it even further. But it's always interesting to me to see how jurors approach a final tribal council. And like, some jurors, myself included, can be a little hostile. Maybe they say things like, I don't know which of you deserves to win. Maybe present company says that sometimes, but
I might say something like that too.
Yeah, I mean, let's be real, Carrie, you and I can be very bitter jurors.
Yeah.
And you know what? That's okay. We embrace that. Maybe we're a little hostile, but we also we're wanting the final tribal contestants to fight for it. We want them to prove it. And that's what so much of this theme of this final tribal council was fight for it, because we don't think you did anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, people say a lot of that. There was a lot of that going on. What did you do?
There was. Yeah, there was a lot. And we cut out a lot. Jury, you're welcome. You're welcome for the amount of times you said, hey, we don't think you did anything out of final tribal, so not everyone heard it as many times as we did while we were editing it.
Little jury over here.
But that kind of leads into this conversation of like the big move again, right? And we're talking about in today's modern era of Survivor, in orgs in general, do you need to have a big move in order to win?
Okay.
The big question.
I have an opinion I'll share about this game.
Yes.
I do think if Maddie had voted out Simmons, she would have won. That is an opinion I have. I do not necessarily think that means that's what she should have done, wanted to, like, right, that's not the game she wanted to play. That wasn't an authentic game to her. And it's also a different context than being out on the island, right?
Mhm.
I don't know, because I would normally, I'm going to say no.
Mhm.
Especially, I will say, okay, so Modern Survivor out in Fiji, I think for the most part, yes, right now at least, they do value having some kind of big move. Although I think we've had a few seasons recently where maybe that's not even true. I will say for orgs, I think in orgs, people they want to like their winner. They
Mhm.
want, I honestly think because the stakes often feel a little less intense than $1 million.
Mhm.
I think people genuinely, I feel like that might be part of the reason I won, is because
Hmm.
I did vote out my closest ally who was the threat to win. So I did have a move, but I do think genuinely part of my win was I was seen as rootable, an underdog, and relatively likable. And I think that was partially why I won. So I guess I don't think I can actually genuinely sit here and say that that's needed fully, right?
Mhm.
I don't know. So it is, I mean, it's a nuanced discussion as why we're
It
having
is.
it.
Yeah, that's exactly why we're having it. Harry, what do you think?
I think, well, it's interesting because I would say yes, but like, what about Austin? I mean, Austin was throwing out names left and right.
Mhm. Arguably, Simmons didn't have a big move either,
Yeah,
right?
like what
Like,
did Simmons do? No, I'm kidding.
I don't think any of these three had a big move, and I think we're just at a point in Survivor where big moves have been overemphasized by a certain host of the Survivor TV show, and like because it makes dramatic TV moments,
Right.
right? It's the product that we're looking at. It's like, yeah, we love big moves because they make great TV moments, but do they make great game moments?
Well, no
And I
one
think
wants,
it's
yeah. Like it's like no one
sorry,
wants to be like on the receiving end of that big move. Like that doesn't feel
yeah.
good. But it's like fun to watch on TV, but you don't want to be involved in it.
But I mean, like, let's pull from my personal examples here. Let's look at Exile Island, right? The big move in Exile Island was the downfall of several players,
Mhm.
right? Like you saw the flip, which was the Zucker boot in Exile Island, and it sealed the fate of Mackenzie, of Lauren, myself, who was like the one who was blindsided by that, and even Austin to an extent, right? Where it kind of tanked the game there for them. And I think some of the mistakes people make are big moves,
Mhm.
making it so, and they feel a necessity to make a big move when it's not the best move. And what we saw this season was a strong group of three loyal allies, always making the best moves for themselves.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Now that we're talking about it and thinking about it, like, I mean, even in Modern Survivor, the last two winners, I think the jury would claim that they voted the winner partially because social game, well liked, well
Mhm.
relatively in power in the same way this trio was, and like just liked them. Because at the end of the day, of course,
Yeah,
and it's of course fun to talk about and debate and stuff, but at the end of the day, there is no objective best game in an inherently subjective game, right? So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
always going to be subjective. So they get to decide what a move even is, right? Or like what it
Mhm.
means. Like if their definition is like the best move you can do is be loyal and true blue to the end, then that's what they decide a big move is. If their definition of big move is cut your closest ally, no matter how in power they are, then that's their definition, right? So it's interesting to see what they value, right?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and that brings us to this. I think the next big point in this final tribal council is jury management isn't jury management's a very important thing of Survivor. Like you don't want people going out hating you because you don't want bitter jurors like me and Carrie because we don't make your life easy. But knowing like reading your jury, being able to read your jury is so important. And I think that is what Simmons does so well at this final tribal council. Because jury, I mean this with all the love, there are a lot of big egos on this jury. A lot of them. And if you listen to Simmons's responses to all of their questions, it's all sucking up to the jury. You look
Oh,
at like you have Andrew's question where it's like, how far was I going to go? And Simmons
yep.
throws up the 3 and everyone else throws the 4. And everyone's like, yeah, okay, Simmons, whatever you say. You see Simmons has his hand up for every single juror as Lex names them all, but whose votes he's going to get. He He talks about how important his relationship with Karen is and how it's like how it really propelled him in the game, right? Like he knew exactly what he needed to say to all of these jurors in order to get their votes.
Oh, I think at one point so they get asked like what are the relationships that were more hidden or not in this trio that you valued? And when I watched it, I was like, well, they can't list people aren't not on this jury. Like you can't you say people on the jury. And Simmons, I think literally list 4 or 5 people sitting on the jury. And I think Maddie lists 1 and then 1 not on the jury. And so and I forget who, I think Austin mentions a couple of people on the jury, but the way Simmons literally is like, you. I don't know if you actually feel that way, but I feel like we connected. Deal with it, you know? Yeah, it's incredible to see. And just literally reading them in real time, you know, and knowing what they're wanting from you in the moment.
I'm a big proponent of final tribal council matters. When I'm a juror, I have an idea of what's going on in the game, but I always say I do not have a set winner until I actually hear what people say. And that's so important. Carrie, how did you feel about the way Simmons approached final tribal council? He got to do it. Last time, he shows up at what he thinks is final tribal council and gets voted out because of a surprise immunity challenge, but he's finally here and gets to plead his case to the jury.
Yeah, I thought it was like a home run. Exactly what he said, and I think he said what he needed to say. And you know, we see everything behind the scenes, and so like for us, we saw like, you know, the entire game. We were like, wow, Simmons is like really he's going far. We could tell from the very beginning. But I think that he said exactly what he needed to say there at Final Tribal.
Can I say something else about Simmons?
Yes, absolutely.
Talk all day about Simmons. There was a question that gets asked by Karen about rookie mistakes that's made. He mentioned something, and then he mentioned some. I took notes about these episodes. He says the other rookie mistake is the whole jury makes a rookie mistake by letting him go far, which I think, and he does it in this really playful way that it just is how it's received well. And what's so interesting is during the game, he would joke with people and he would say, y'all need to get me out. And he would say like really jovially, really playfully, he would be like, it really should be me. Or when people vote for him, he'd be like, they should vote for me, like, and 2 other players, not just in confessionals. So I think that really paid off in a way, because when he makes this sort of like coy, like, y'all made a rookie mistake, let me get to this point, I think it seems like it's received super well. And it's also true. So there you go.
It really helps when the information you're providing in Final Tribal Council is just true, and it's really evident, right? Like, and that's the most impressive thing about these 3 getting to the end. There is no way these 3 should have been sitting here at the end together. I love them all dearly, and I think they played fantastic games, which is what got them to the end. But when we went into merge that Friday night, going into that mini day, production's talking, and it's like, yeah, these 3 are done for. There is no way.
Maddie's next, then Simmons, then Austin. That's the end. But you know, the big move was getting out Lex, and then all like 7, 8 people in that alliance went afterwards.
That's a great point, Carrie. The big move that this 3 made was holding tight at that merge vote and just waiting and letting things play out. They didn't panic. They didn't you know, hope everything went crazy. They just waited, and then they let chaos ensue, because everyone knows if you give people time, things will happen, because that's just how Survivor works. So now as we're talking about Simmons and as this big threat in the game, and this is an all-star season, so keep that in mind when answering this question. V, should past games come into consideration when we are accounting for this game?
You mean in terms of them being at Final Tribal?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. So for instance, Austin and Simmons both made it almost to the ends in their previous seasons. Does that weigh more than someone like Maddie, who was a pre-merge rock out in her first season. Like, does that weigh more? Does that make it so that's like, yeah, okay, this should be considered in final tribal council? Or is this like a clean slate? What happened this game?
Well, I think for this jury, it did matter because it was asked of them, how have you grown, right? They get asked at one point, like, we want to know about your journey. And I'm a big narrative person. I want to hear the narrative. I want to hear the story of, because I think it shows a lot of self-awareness. Oh, it's not gonna it shows a lot of self-awareness. It shows a lot of insight. I actually think, in a weird way, I think it would benefit Maddie to be like, I was a pre-merge queen back there, and look at me now. Like, look how I've grown. Are you kidding me? Like, I didn't know a rock from a pebble, and now look at me. Like, I just think so. It kind of in the opposite way. I think she does emphasize. She does talk about. They all talk about their growth, but in an opposite way, I think it weirdly benefits. To me, I would be more interested in that story than I'm like, oh, these guys go to Final Five all the time. It's just their thing. Whatever. I'm not interested. Like, I like a story, like a real growth story, which is I fell in love with Austin's isolated story here, you know. So I guess I do, but
yeah, I think it definitely matters, especially for an all-star season. I hate when you're like playing, you know, a game that's like an isolated game, and they're talking about, oh, but like in their last game they did blah blah blah, and it's like, oh, I don't care. But I think for all-stars it's important, like, you know, to talk about why they're all-stars, why are they here.
I do think the all-stars of it makes it really a little more of a harder question in this instance, right? Because this is all the same game, right? And even if we look at like Survivor All-Stars, like back then, and they voted all the winners first and stuff like that, that's what they were wanting to do. They wanted a new person to win the game. We don't have that type of conversation here, but we have like these people played together kind of conversations. Personally, I kind of think it's more detrimental to your game to focus on previous games. Like it, and like that's just playing the game. In playing the game, I think it's detrimental to think on previous games, because it's like, oh, well, I know that Austin and Simmons played a game together, right? And if I'm thinking that the entire time, I'm thinking, oh, I probably should separate them. But that's not me reacting to how things are actually playing out in this game. And I think that's important. When it comes to voting, I mean, you know what? Every person is entitled to vote however they want. Would I personally take in consideration someone's last game? No, but like I said, I'm a big Final Tribal Council guy. I don't take into consideration most of your game up to that point. Just speak well. I don't know. Tell me to screw off. I'll probably vote for you.
Oh yeah, that's true. Yeah, John loves that.
But
you cuss him out.
Yeah, I do. I really do. I like someone standing up for themselves. But the thing is, like, I like that because in doing that, you are taking a risk that you're losing other jurors' votes. And you're telling me my vote matters to you that much, but my opinion doesn't matter to you. And I like that. I respect that. But I'm weird like that. So, yeah, I totally get it. So when we're at the end of this game and we're considering this, maybe like Simmons being such a big threat is what pushes him over the top here. I don't know. But I will say we do get to this final vote. The final breakdown is 5 votes for Simmons, 2 votes for Maddie, 1 vote for Austin. It was a lot closer than this vote breakout makes it seem. Because there were some people who took a very long time in their voting confessionals trying to figure out who they were voting for. It was Lex. He took like 10 minutes.
Did he cry?
I don't know. I wasn't there. I was with the jury. I was just holding the jury intact and be like, no, you guys can't talk about the game. But that's what it was. But that's it. We get to the end. Simmons wins. And I mean, personally, like, obviously, I'm stoked that it's someone from my season who wins. I also think like Simmons is such a fantastic representation of DCP in general. I think he is an incredible social player. I think he's an incredible just survivor player in general. I think he really embodies what we go for here in DCP. We couldn't ask for a better winner for All-Stars. Obviously, personally, I was cheering for second place here, but that should be pretty obvious. Well, so overall, V, what are your thoughts on Simmons as a winner?
Satisfied. I mean, he was in a powerful position. It sounds like at times not, it sounds like the jury was made aware of it. Like he did what he did amazing at Final Tribal. I'm like you, John, like Final Tribal is everything to me. Like that's like what I base my vote off of, is how well I think somebody can articulate their game, their awareness, and like being convinced. I want to be convinced and wooed, if you will. And I think he did a great job of wooing the jury. And I mean, all had great showings at Final Tribal.
Yeah.
Just different journeys they needed to take, and I think barriers, and coming in, I think the jury had probably ideas and stuff like that. But yeah, I thought his showing at Final Tribal was incredible. He clearly played, he had an awareness that he ultimately was at least originally the glue of that trio. And that is like a pretty impressive thing to be, especially if you're planning to go to the end with your trio. And he should feel really proud of himself. Of course, I too wanted a woman winner. It's just like a personal bias and a desire. I want DCP to continue their trend, but I'm very happy with Simmons winning. I think he played an incredible, great game, extremely well-rounded, which is like, you don't always get that. At least that's with my game. I did not feel, I was not a well-rounded winner. He was very well-rounded, like all aspects. Like most best challenge performance, like won the most challenges, good social game, and very masterful strategic game. So he should feel proud, and he probably does. So that's good.
I'm sure he does. Carrie, what are your thoughts on our winner coming out representing DCP as the winner of All Stars?
I too wanted a woman to win.
Sorry,
no, I mean, so it's like Simmons to me was a very like satisfying winner, because like we saw, the beginnings of his, the 3-person alliance, and he went to so many tribal councils, like they all did. Just kept going and going and going. And then like that tribe in the beginning was like the underdog tribe. And then you're like, oh man, this poor tribe, are they ever going to start winning? And then they merged, and he was supposed to be voted out, like Maddie and Simmons and Austin, the 3 of them were supposed to go first. That's not what happened. And so it's kind of like you see like the underdogs like rise up, and so all 3 of them had this really great underdog story. And so so he was like a very like satisfying winner, like, oh yes, underdog won. And it was really nice to see him too, like knowing that he did come so close in exile, and he cares so much about winning. Like he's got to be like the most competitive person ever. Like it doesn't make sense how much he cares about this org, right? You're like, Simmons, he's like, why does he, like, he's like a dude bro, whatever, I don't know. Why is this so important to you? And like it's so important to him because it's like something you can win. Like everything you can win is important. And so I know that it meant so much to him to win, and I know that he was like on cloud 9 forever because of it. So it was really fun to watch.
Absolutely. Well, it's the last Sunday show. We have to have some sort of game, and V, this game's just for you because Carrie knows the answers. So it's just for you.
Okay.
And it's a simple one this time. We talked about the votes. We have a 5, a 2 to 1. 3 votes were shown in that last episode. We know Kylie voted for Simmons. We know Ashley voted for Maddie. And we know that Shea voted for Austin. I've got a slideshow here with the rest of the votes. When someone's face comes up, you have to tell me, did they vote Simmons or did they vote Maddie?
Oh my God. And I don't remember. Wait, can you tell me? You'll show me the people. Because
I'm putting up a slideshow right now that will have their faces.
You said Kylie. I'm so sorry. You said Kylie voted Simmons. I knew that.
Yep.
Ashley voted Maddie.
Yep. And Shea voted for Austin. So those 3 are not included in this slideshow. The other 5 are. And one of them voted for Maddie. You have to try to figure out which one it was that voted for Maddie.
That's what I'm playing. Okay. I was like, I'm playing it. Yeah. Okay. I'm ready.
All right. So first up, Andrew.
That's
an exile brother. But he also played really closely with Maddie throughout the game. What do you think? Who do you think he voted for?
I believe Andrew voted for Simmons.
That is correct. Andrew did vote for Simmons.
Yes. Yeah.
I wasn't going to throw it out right away, right? Zucker, another exile Islander, also spent a lot of time with Maddie towards the end of the game. What do you think? Simmons or Maddie?
Sorry, I took notes on what they all said, so I'm trying to glean from what they asked questions. I believe Zucker voted for Simmons as well.
That's correct.
Great game, buddy.
Karen.
She asked
Karen. Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say Karen, our only winner. A big threat coming into the game. Talked about, how hard it is for women to play aggressively in the game. What do you think?
She voted Simmons.
Yeah, she did.
Yeah.
Lex, I told you. I gave you a hint here. Lex took 10 minutes to figure out who he was voting for. Do you think he ultimately landed on Simmons or Maddie?
And on my season, Lex voted for Sarah because he liked that she clapped back. So he's like, he will throw a vote. Like he's like, if you yell at him, he'll vote for you,
Yeah.
He was okay. Also, I think his questions, it's hard to glean from how he asked the questions. All stars, okay. I bet he voted Maddie.
No, he voted Simmons.
Why does he look so sad though?
He's because it took him 10 minutes to come to this conversation, to this conclusion.
I see.
Then we have Austin.
See, I would think Austin voted Simmons.
Austin was the other vote for Maddie.
Oh, feminist king. Austin, I'm so sorry.
Feminist king, love that.
Oh, I mean, any man who votes for a woman is a feminist by nature,
Right.
Yeah.
That's what it takes.
I always joke that if a man leaks an alliance to me, he's a feminist for that.
Oh, of course. That's a good call. Yeah, I like that. I like that a lot. All right. That's it. We've come to the end of the Sunday show. There's only one last thing for us to do. We need some MVPs for these last 3 episodes. So V, as our guest, who are you giving your MVP to this week?
For all 3 episodes?
Yeah.
Whoa. Oh,
well, you like one MVP for the 3 of them combined.
Yeah. Carrie, you go first. Is that okay? I have to think.
Okay. I'm gonna go Austin because it's like the growth, and I was so proud of him for winning immunity twice and coming in clutch with the final immunity. And also he's just so funny. I just am, every time he has a confessional, I get excited because I'm like, what's he gonna say? And I love his analogies. He's a character, and I just love it. So yeah, so he's my MVP this time around.
I'm gonna choose Maddie because
Okay.
I clearly, especially based off of what I've learned today in Sunday's show, I think she might have almost won here. She's extremely articulate. She had, to me, the best opening speech. She killed Final Tribal in so many ways. I also think, I understand Simmons was that glue, but I also think Simmons doesn't get that as far without her too. Obviously he's a deserving winner, but in a duo you need both elements of it. I respect her game so much, and I admire her, and I think if she could do another org showing, I think she could get very far and perhaps win the whole thing with just a couple tweaks, and I not even that many, because I think she might have almost swept here potentially. So she's my choice.
Well, let's go for the trifecta. I'm going to give my MVP to Simmons today. Simmons, you did it. You pulled off the win. You kept an incredibly strong alliance together throughout this entire game. The 3 of you, all kudos to all 3 of our Final Tribal contestants, obviously. But Simmons, you were kind of stung by a loyal game at the end of Exile, and you still stuck to your guns. You did it this time too. You kept with that loyal game. You knew that this was your path to the end. Have to commend you for that. You did a fantastic job at Final Tribal Council. You gave the jury exactly what they wanted, and you walked away with the W because of it. So with that, we now have our full season tallies of MVPs. With 1 MVP point this season, we have Andrew, Jeremy, Mike, Rick, Shea, and Zucker. With 2 MVPs, we have Austin, Garsow, Maddie, Kylie. With 3 MVPs, we have Austin, Moorhead, and Karen. And our MVPest of MVPs does go to this season's winner, Mike Simmons. You've done it. You have 6 MVP points for the entire week or the entire season.
Yes.
You did phenomenal. Well deserved. Thank you, everyone, all of our contestants on All Stars. It's been such a pleasure talking about this season, working on this season, watching this season.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, V, for joining us. We are so happy to have you in the community back here talking. Carrie, thank you so much for being the brain behind the Sunday show this year. It's been a lot to me. Makes my job a lot easier. Also for filling in for guests left and right all throughout the season. Love you for that so much. Thanks go out to the rest of production and DCP's hosts, and of course McKenna Feeney, who's editing all this stuff. We can't do any of this, of course, though, without you, the viewers. We are so happy that you're out there and the entire DCP community. This might be it for the end of the Sunday show, but we do still have a little bit of coverage left for All Stars. We have 2 more exit interviews coming at you. That's Maddie's and Simmons' exit interviews. Plus, we have our production draft wrap up, recap, breakdown coming at you later this week. So keep your eyes peeled right here on this YouTube channel. Click like and subscribe. You'll know when that goes. Thank you, everyone, so much for tuning into the Sunday show all season. I look forward to seeing you again next season.